Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome to Monday Jumpstart. I am Marianne with Happy Paper People, and with me today is my friend and co host, Candy.
Hi, ladies.
So glad that you're all here. Good way to jumpstart our week. We're here on every Monday to jumpstart our week, jumpstart our creativity, jumpstart our using up of our supplies. So we try to use some things that maybe we haven't used before or used very much to jumpstart all those things. If you're watching us on replay, thank you for being here. We hope that one day you'll be able to join us live on Monday for Jumpstart. But
Um,
if not, that's okay. You're welcome to watch on the replay. Double time is good too. Join us in
yes.
Happy Paper People Facebook group. That's always a wonderful place to be. And that's where we post all our pictures of things that we make after this as we're trying all the different techniques. So that's an awfully fun time. So let's say hello, Tina. Hi, Tina. So happy to see you here. Can't wait. Hope to get some motivation to finish my Valentine's journal for Margie's challenge. Yes, thank you
Huh.
for bringing that up. This is the last week, guys. This is the last week. This coming Friday night at midnight Mountain Time, is the deadline to get your pictures or your video posted in the Happy Paper People Facebook group for Margie's Buck the System challenge, making a journal or a book that's at least 6 by 6, has at least 10 pages, and uses anything except butterflies, flowers, and lace.
Okay,
It
Marianne,
will
Marianne, 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 Marianne. You need to check your YouTube because I can't see the video on YouTube. I can see chat, but no video. I don't know what's going on.
really, let me see if I can see it.
Yeah, I think they can see it or they just said something, but I sure can't see it on YouTube. That is
Guys,
weird.
will you tell? Oh,
I
okay, it's
Yeah,
there.
I got chat, but I don't got no video. Isn't
Oh,
that?
that's
It says an error occurred. Please try again later.
oh,
I'm like,
that's
what?
weird. You might want to go out and go back in. I
I
see
did.
video. That's
I did.
weird.
I'm like, okay.
Guys, let us know in chat if you can see us and hear us. That would be awesome. So I'm not just talking to Candy.
I think they can hear you. I can see the, like I said, I can see the chat. It's going. But I can't see no video.
Oh,
Isn't
that's
that?
hilarious.
Sandy said
Good.
she had to reboot. Oh man.
Oh, that's weird.
Well, I'm not
Uh-oh.
rebooting because then I might not come back up at all.
Yeah, that's no. Please don't
Let me try
reboot.
a different browser.
It's Monday. The computer doesn't want to wake up. It's snowing here. I'm in Utah, and it is snowing. We woke up to snow
Oh
this morning,
wow.
and it's been snow. And Candy, you're probably what, like 50 degrees and beautiful?
Let me check. Hold on. Let me get logged in here on this new
Not
browser.
quite.
No, it's
Anyway,
gonna
to
be up to
finish up
70. It's
there,
supposed to be up to 70 today.
oh, geez, up to 70.
Yeah.
It would be worth you hustling this week to get a book made, to get into that challenge, because
Oh, sorry.
it's okay. Saturday night, we will draw the winner. The winner will be randomly drawn on our Saturday Night Live, and the winner will receive a $50 shopping spree with shipping included from my shop inventory. And guess what was delivered this morning?
I'm 73 today. 73 right now.
73.
Right now, it's 73.
The new collections of Stemperia were dropped on my door this morning by DHL. So they are here. We were hoping, they tried really hard to get them to us by Saturday during our sale, but they didn't make it. So they got here this morning. There is a second prize as well, and there is a third prize also. So definitely worth trying to get a book put together this week. There's some pretty awesome ones out there. Excuse me. Yeah, just pictures of every page. So we can verify that there are no butterflies, flowers, or lace, or a video walkthrough will work and you'll get in there. So let me go back and finish saying hello to
Oh,
everybody.
Toby's doing her first one. She said she's using a magnifying glass to make sure there's no flowers, lace, or butterflies. It's my first
Oh,
journal.
hi,
She's never made
Teresa.
one before. That's cool,
Yes,
Toby.
I know that she hadn't. That's awesome. So last
Can't
month
wait to
we
see
did
it.
a Saturday Night Live where we made journal covers so that those who had never made one would at least know how to make a basic cover. Hi, Julie. Hey, Debbie. So good to see you guys. Who else is here? Oh, good. Julie's got her crayons with her. Hi, Toby. Sandy, good morning. Flipping through. I'm just trying to flip through the chat and catch up, make sure and say hello, and we'll get
Yeah.
started here. Hey, Joni, good to see you. Hi, Kathy, Margie, Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Yep, Margie, your challenge. It's going to be a good one, man. There's some good
So many new
books.
first timers.
Yes, people that Margie, you motivated them to actually get a first journal made, and that's amazing. You keep your snow. I'll keep my snow. I just
Yeah.
hope it doesn't stay. I don't want to keep it. No, Julie, 6 by 6. The book itself, the whole outside of the book, when it's closed, needs to be at least 6 by 6 or larger. 72 for Sandy, Alabama. Man, you guys in your warm weather, not
Yeah.
quite ready. I'm going to make a big pot of chili this afternoon because it's so cold.
Yeah. We made hamburger soup yesterday, but it warmed up.
Oh, that sounds good. I like soup anytime, though.
Yeah, it's true.
I
And it's
like soup
cheeseburger soup,
anytime.
so
So, well, it doesn't have to be a square book. If you made a round book and you went, across it, and the um,
circumference.
circumference is at least not the circum. That's all the way around, right? What is it across? It starts with a D. It just left my brain.
Diameter.
Diameter. Thank you. If the diameter is at least 6 inches on a round book, that will work. That's a 6 inch or larger book. That will work. 4 by 4. She's saying like the pages. The pages inside would have to be at least about 4 by 4 because the cover. Well, that's not even true, Margie, because that means you have a full inch on each side. That's a pretty big margin between the pages and the cover. Just make sure, however you do it, just make sure that when you lay your book down closed, the outside of the book measures at least 6 by 6. Six, that's all. A round book will work. Diameter, yes, thank you. Any size, 6 inches or larger. Margie just woke up. It's okay. I'll give her some allowance. All right. So, who's going to play along today with crayons? Who doesn't want to play with crayons? I never wanted to play with crayons well, not that I didn't want to, but I always wanted to keep them perfect. I wanted to keep the crayons perfect, and every time we played with them, they would get worn down and broken off, and then they didn't look all perfect. That kind
You
of
might get
defeats.
a new box.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, in my house we didn't get a new box, so but doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of having the supplies just to keep them looking all perfect like that, sitting there, not using them? So now we know different. Now we know that we want to use them. We want them to look used, worn down a little bit, even broken. It's okay if some of our crayons break because they still work just as well. And I'm going to show you that. Even beautiful colors, they still work just as well. I'm not even upset about this. I've got a big old shadow I can see. Let's see if that does that help at all? Maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna change the direction of my desk in here and work on the lighting because I keep moving it around and it's just not making me happy yet. So, all right, guys, who's working with us today? Kathy has gelatos. Julie has gelatos. What do you have? Julie, you have gelatos. You have distress crayons. I'll show you what I'm going to use today. So I went back and forth on whether we should. I'm going to go solo, Candy, for
Okay.
a bit here. I went back and forth on whether I should include oil pastels in today because oil pastels are very crayon-like, and I decided not to. We will do soft pastels and oil pastels together on one day. So we're just doing pastels. So I originally made this 6 because I was going to include more. In the end, I decided this is a piece of watercolor paper. I've just divided it into 6 sections, but actually we're just going to use 4. I'll end up cutting 2 off and just using them for something else. That's okay. I'll end up cutting the whole thing up and using it for something else anyway later. But I decided just to keep it to crayons. And I decided to just stick with 4 crayons. Before we get started in that, let me just remind you, Monday's hashtag is always hashtag Monday Jumpstart and whatever it is. So today, the hashtag is hashtag Monday Jumpstart Crayons. Just crayons. Love it when it's simple. Some of them are so long. Hashtag Monday Jumpstart Crayons. So anything that you make with crayons, if you do the comparisons like we're doing today, if you make something, if you do one of the techniques, take pictures, put them in the group. This gets you able to win some drawings. So Monday Jumpstart Crayons will be today's. Thursdays is always Mass Make. Saturday night is always hashtag SNL. And don't forget to come back and comment on any videos that are on our YouTube channel, Happy Paper People. In your comment, put hashtag 1000 subs somewhere. Doesn't matter where it is in the comment, I see it. And that is going to get you in the drawing. As soon as we hit 1000 subs, I am filling a box. I've got a box, flat rate box sitting over here that I am tossing things in and slowly filling so that when we hit 1000 subs, it'll be full and we're going to draw and give that away. Now, you can get in this drawing one time for every single video that you watch and comment on. So please watch and comment. And let me ask a favor. When you watch the video, you can put it on double time to make it go twice as fast. I'm okay with that, especially if it's a Saturday Night Live and we're, killing time chatting or something. But make the video go all the way to the end, even if you have to fast forward a little bit so that it can go all the way to the end, because that really affects the algorithm in YouTube. If we just go in and watch the first couple minutes, or if you go in and you watch all the way to the end, or at least, until there's just like a minute or something left. If you'll do that for me, that would be awesome. Really appreciate it. Hashtag 1000 subs. Some of you are already on top of that and have been commenting on videos, and that list is already going for that drawing. And then when you post your pictures of the journal, this is our last week to do it. So I want to make sure we talk about this for Margie's Buck the System Challenge. Be sure to hashtag Buck System or Buck the System. Either way, we're going to pull both. Hashtag Buck the System, and so that journal can get into the challenge drawing. And that drawing will be held Saturday night. This Saturday night. I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a good one. Gonna be a fun one. I think, Candy, you were the first one to get your journal in there, weren't you? If I remember right.
I don't know. First or second, I don't know.
One of the first couple. Sandy Rath got hers in right away.
Yeah, me and Sandy were real close.
You guys were both, right up there. There's a lot of people that have already gotten them in, but there's 3 prizes up for grabs. So, guys, be sure to get in on that. So,
you're using watercolor paper right now. That's what you got in front of you.
This is watercolor paper.
Yeah, Kathy wanted to know what paper she should use with Gelatos.
Okay. All we're going to use today is watercolor paper and a heavy cardstock. That's all. And I'll tell you when I'm switching from one to the other. I'm going to use watercolor paper to do the comparison for you to see. And because then we can add water to it.
Margie's got groceries coming. Anything good, Margie? Like cheesecake?
Nice. Oh, shoot. Yeah, that probably means she has cheesecake. And then she's going to sit there and eat cheesecake Saturday night while we work our behinds off. Oh, man. Margie has gelatos. Oh, gelatos are perfect. That is a crayon, Margie. And you don't really like them. Well, I'm hoping that I can show you a couple of techniques today that maybe you will.
There is cheesecake, she said.
We knew that. How did we know that? For sure. Okay, you will probably want a baby wipe if you want to try the things that I'm doing. You will probably want a baby wipe. You will probably want
multiple baby wipes.
A water brush, or where did my brush go? Oh, or just a brush with some water. Doesn't matter. Either or both. I'll probably grab both. I end up grabbing whichever. And whatever crayons you have, if you have one kind, that's perfectly fine. I want to show the difference in them. So if some people are like, well, I have the Distress crayons, but what is the difference in those and the Gelatos? Or what is the difference in those and the Vicky Bouton that I've had at the sale, or Jane Davenport, or any of the others? I decided to just compare these four today. The Distress, Tim Holtz Distress crayons, the Gelatos, Faber Castell Gelatos, which are probably the two most commonly known. That's probably what most of you have, or the first ones you acquired. The Vicky Bouton crayons. I did have some packs of the Vicky Bouton crayons Saturday at the sale, and I think there's a few left. And then the Jane Davenport crayons. So I decided just to stick with the four of them today. So we'll do those. There are more out there. There are more on the market. And then those of you who are familiar know that oil pastels are very similar to the crayons. And we'll do pastels, soft and oil, on another day and compare those. Excuse me. When I have things like this that I am not familiar with, or maybe I'm familiar with these, but I'm not familiar with these, and I come into these, and or it's a really, really good price and I just have to buy them, right? Can't pass it up. I get really curious as to what is different. Why are they different? It's just like bread. When you go to the store, when you order your groceries to come to you, you probably order a particular brand of bread, right? Why do you do that? Because it's different than the other brands, and that's the brand you like. And if I ask you why, you'd say, well, because it's softer, or it's got a crispier crust, or it's more whole grain, or it's more this, or it's more that, whatever it is. So every brand of crayons is different. They act different, they react different, and it's all a matter of preference, what you like. And sometimes it's just a matter of what are you doing with it. That's why I have multiples, because if I'm doing this, I like this one. If I'm doing that, I like that one. Mostly it ends up, if I get them for the sale, I end up taking one out to try it so that you can all see what it does. And then I have one, whether I want it or not, which, darn it, right? Darn it, I have to have one. But curious is one of my favorite words, and I want you to kind of implant curious in your brain, because curious is what made me come to the Monday Jumpstart. Curiosity is the thing that brings us to learn new things, and it's the thing that brings us to discover new things and create new things. So through Monday Jumpstart, I want for us to be curious and to take that curiosity and always be curious about everything. Let's do this. Okay, up here we're going to do Tim Holtz Distress. And second one, we'll do Gelatos. Third one, we'll do the Vicky Bouton. And the fourth one, we'll do Jane Davenport. Okay. Get rid of these other pieces of paper. So I only have one right here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put some, these are twisty on the bottom, so you can twist it up, twist the, the media up and the color, and you can retract it with that as you use it, just twist up what you need. So let's put some on here like this, and then let's do some like this, because we're going to do several different tests with them to compare. Okay, so there's our Tim Holtz Distress. And I tried to grab like a blue. I said, let's go with blue for the first one. And I tried to grab a blue that seemed kind of similar on all of them. So the next is the Gelatos. And the third is the Vicky Bouton. I'm trying not to be so heavy-handed. I tend to be very heavy-handed. And I really don't need to be. Especially most of these, quality mediums and media, you just really don't have to be. Ooh, Jane Davenport, I haven't even used that one. You really don't have to be that heavy-handed, and I'm trying not to be. So today I am just really just barely rubbing over it to get some on here on this watercolor paper. This one's like a lipstick tube. Okay, so there we go. So the first thing that we're going to do, this is untreated cold press watercolor paper. First thing that we're going to do is try to blend it with our fingers and see how they blend. Okay, this is really hard to blend. It's not blending very well. Okay, we'll go next to the gelatos. The gelato, although that's much creamier and is blending quite well with fingers. That's a very nice creamy blend, even on this thick, bumpy watercolor paper. Okay, Vicky Bouton, get to the third finger here. That's pretty creamy, not as creamy as the gelato, but that's really quite creamy. And look at that, that blended really well as well. Let me see if I can clean. Look how easily that cleaned off. My old sweatshirt on, so because I tend to wipe my hands on what I have on. I should have put an apron on, huh? Then the Jane Davenport. Okay, this is kind of like the Distress. It's a little bit creamier. It's blending a little better, but it's still not really blending super well. Okay, so this is a dry blend, a dry crayon, a dry paper, a dry blend with fingers. And you can see the difference just in taking the basic media. So some people like to blend with their fingers, some people don't, and you don't have to. Another thing that is good to blend with is a blending stump. Trillium, is that there's an actual technical term for these and I always forget it. So, but a blending stump, which is basically paper that is wound and wound and wound and wound, and they come in all different sizes. I've got tons of them. They're great for blending colored pencils, and they work for crayons as well, and they just kind of wear down as you use them. They just kind of wear down and move down themselves. Okay, so on untreated cold press watercolor paper, blending with fingers, that's what we have. So now let's take the wipe, the baby wipe, which is wet, and we'll blend with that one. While I'm doing this, I'm not looking at chat, but I'll turn around and look at chat, every couple minutes between. So if you have a question, if you try to remember to put 4 question marks and then type it in caps, as I scan through, it makes it real easy to see, or for Candy to catch and tell me. And don't freak out if I don't get to it immediately, because I will scroll back and grab all those. Those are easy to see. Okay, so with the baby wipe, this blended super nice. The gelato also blended super nice. Got 4 corners here. Let's try the Vicky Bouton. Ooh, that blends very nice as well. Okay. And that probably shouldn't surprise us because these are all water-based, water reactive media. And so with the baby wipe, they all blended really nicely. Okay, so now let's try blending them with water. So I'll grab the water brush for this. I just filled the water brush and I'm sure that I overfilled it. So hoping we don't get water squirting everywhere. Out of top and the bottom and everywhere, all over my fingers. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to blend these with water. And let's see. Ooh. So this is the Tim Holtz Distress crayon. And when I put water on it and blend it, wow, that blends really nice and creamy. Okay, I'm going to rinse that just a tiny bit, just to not get the color over. although it doesn't really matter. They're all similar blue. Here's the gelato. I dropped a drop of water on it, so I grabbed that. Oh, wow. Blends really nicely with the water, water as well. Look at that. You can take it and move it around. Okay. All right, the Vicky Bouton. Ooh, I am dripping water all over the place. Yeah, I knew I overfilled them as I was doing it. I should have dumped a little. Wow, that is so rich. Lots of pigment in that. That color is amazing. Okay, and then the Jane Davenport. Oh, look how creamy. Okay, so they all blended very nicely with water. They all blended very nicely with the wet baby wipe, which is also with water and whatever else is in there. Okay, so let's do where's my paper? I'm going to set this aside. Let's grab another different color. We did blue. Let's try red. I've got the same. We're only using the same 4 brands.
Margie says her gelatos disappear with water. She can't do the finger thing. Try the baby wipe.
They
Really
disappear with water, and I can't do. They should. Okay, if they disappear with water, either there's too much water or there's not enough gelatos on there. And you don't have to use your fingers. You can use the baby wipe or use a water brush. If you don't want to use a paintbrush and water, you could just use the water brush. But the baby wipe, whoops, what a mess there.
My Jane Davenports aren't doing nothing. They aren't blending.
Really?
No. Let me try more.
Doing the same things that I did. It's not. Is it? Wow, that's really interesting. I just suddenly couldn't write TH for Tim Holtz. I don't know what I did there. I tried to write HH. Tim Holtz. Okay, Gelatos is our second. Did they not move at all with the baby wipe or with water?
No. Treated or untreated. Try both.
So,
I don't know.
Try a different color to see if maybe that color, are they brand new or have they been used?
Yeah, they're brand new.
Okay. Sometimes they have a white coating on them when they're brand new. Take the baby wipe and just kind of wipe that coating, the end of the crayon off. But maybe they don't have it even. Try a different color and see if you get anything different. Okay, so this is the same watercolor paper, but this time I have put a coat of white gesso on each section. So you probably can't see it, but just so you know, there is white gesso. So that means this paper is treated. It's sealed, you know, as we put it on. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to let's start out with the Tim Holtz up here. But now we're going over treated surface.
Julie says she has trouble with distress crayons. If you wait too long, they dry out and set.
Yep. We'll get to that. Yep, she is right. She is correct. And you can still work with them, but that's one of the properties. We're going to get to the specific properties of those right now. I just wanted to do a general comparison so that you can see.
Glennis is eating lunch. Sandy found, I don't even want to tell you this because it just makes me hungry. Sandy found a new ice cream called Cherry-tastic Cheesecake.
Oh,
yeah, what brand?
Oh my goodness.
What brand, Sandy?
Cherry-tastic Cheesecake. Oh, yeah, what brand, Sandy?
Julie has Twiggy sticks, but they are not crayons, they are pigment sticks.
Oh, are they? Okay. Okay, pigment sticks are different. They're probably more like the pastels, aren't they? Like mica sticks, pigment sticks. I don't know. And everything is so close yet so different, which is why I thought today we'll stick just with crayons and then we'll move on to some of the other things. Okay, so now we are on a treated surface. So we'll go back here and we're going to blend with our finger. Now look at this. On the last one, the Tim Holtz did not blend very well, but this one is blending much better. Why is that? Well, on a untreated surface on the watercolor paper, as you put down the Tim Holtz crayon, if you blend it immediately, it will blend. But if you wait, and we waited long enough for me to put the other colors down, then it dries out. It Yeah, because you put it down immediately,
Oh,
it's kind of
oh,
damp.
it's Blue Bunny. Oh God,
Oh no.
that's some good ice cream there.
Oh shoot, and strawberry cheesecake, or was it cherry cheesecake or strawberry cheesecake? What did she
Cherry,
say?
cherry,
Cherry cheesecake is Doug's favorite, so I'm gonna have
cherry-tastic
to get some
cheesecake or something.
cherry-tastic cheesecake.
Oh yeah.
But on a treated paper with the medium on it, the Tim Holtz does not dry out immediately. So you have longer. You can come back and blend that, and it will blend. Where on the um, not untreated watercolor paper, it dried out and did not blend with fingers very well at all. Okay, so here's the gelato on
Oh,
the
Sandy's
treated.
allergic to strawberries.
Oh, I am so sorry, but I want to sit next to you so I can have all your strawberries. Okay, the gelatos were very nice blending, nice and creamy. The Vicky Bouton blended very nicely. Let me get some of this off my fingers and try the Jane Davenport. Oh, that's blending even better. That's really nice. So they all blend nicely on the treated surface. This is white gesso, and really, if they're treated with anything, it's going to function the same. It's going to give you the same response or reaction. Okay, so now let's blend with a wipe like we did before. Let's see if I turn this inside out. Can we maybe use the other side, or will we get blue? We're going to get blue through there. Does blue go through a baby wipe? Or does the color go through the baby wipe and come out the other side? I won't take a chance. We don't want purple. We want it to stay red so we can see. So I'll grab a clean baby wipe. Shoot, and Doug was at the store this morning. I'm gonna have to tell him to go back for Blue Bunny. All right, so here we are going back on the treated surface with the baby wipe. Okay, so it blends very well, and you can even remove it. Look at that. So got a blend, but I can actually remove it on that treated surface. Can move it around anywhere and remove it. Wow. Okay, so the gelato. Ooh, that moves really nicely. Removed a lot. Got a lot of pigment on my baby wipe. The Vicky Bouton. That blends nicely as well and also removes. I got a lot of pigment on the baby wipe. And the Jane Davenport.
Yeah, my Jane Davenports aren't doing nothing.
Oh, that is not good. We'll have to look at those later. Okay, so they all moved really well on the medium with the baby wipe, but the medium also acts as not as a resist, but as it's a sealer that keeps it from soaking into or being absorbed by the paper. And if it's not absorbed by the paper and I put this wet material on it, it can pick it up. So we could remove as much of it as we want from any of them. We could go back with a clean part of the baby wipe and wipe until we remove as much as we want there. And so you may or may not like that. What you want to know is how does it react in all these conditions so that you can get the result you want. You might want that result. In fact, well, let's do this first. Let me go back here now with water. Let's go back with water and see what happens. So with the water brush, it blends, it moves. Okay. I can move that up. I can move that, wherever we want there. Okay. The gelatos. Same thing, very rich and creamy. Can move it around with water. It does, when I move it though, it does form a line. Like I moved it up here, it does form a line. It doesn't kind of let me move it. Oh, I know why. Because right there is where I stopped. Right there is where I stopped with the medium so that I could write up here and not have it on top of the medium. So when I put it up here, it absorbs in and stops there, and I couldn't move it again. So if I keep it down here, it doesn't matter where I move it to. I can continue to move it again. I can continue pulling that and pull that down and move it anywhere I want as long as I stay on top of the medium. That makes perfect sense. Okay, the Vicky Bouton. That one moves nicely as well. Okay, and the Jane Davenport. Nice and creamy. Can move that all over. As long as I stay on the medium, I can move it anywhere I want. Okay, so that's good to know. What I do with the cap? Who knows what I do with the cap? Leave it right there. Okay, so I want to, before we leave this one, I want to show you, we saw that with the water or with something wet, anything wet on the medium, we could remove the crayon, we could remove the color, remove the pigment. We got a lot off on here. I'm going to turn it inside out so I just don't have it all over my fingers. But there are times that you put it down that you might want to remove some. Maybe you take your baby wipe in here. I'll do these both at the same time since it's long enough. You put your stencil down and you want to remove some, and you get like a reverse stencil. Another way to use stencils. We kind of sort of touched on this when we did stencils, but not to this degree with the crayons. So you can take any stencil, you could do a word in here, you could do any kind of design that you want. Just put the stencil down, rub it. You can rub it just a tiny bit and get a little bit of lift. You can keep rubbing it and get a whole bunch of lift. But that can give you a very cool watercolor bubble looking background. Julie, are you using mixed media paper or watercolor paper? And I don't, I don't know for sure what your mixed media paper is, but I am on just watercolor paper. But again, I know there's different brands of mixed media paper, so could be acting different if you're not getting the same response. So this is the one that is coated in white gesso. So if we bring these side by side, you can see that the blend is a little different, that the spreadability is a little bit different by having a treated surface versus just the raw paper. Okay, so now let's go to the third paper. This one, where's the marker? Let's see, Holtz Distress, Gelatos, Vicky Bouton, and Jane Davenport. Okay, this one is the same watercolor paper, the exact same cold press watercolor paper, but this one I treated with a clear gesso, and then I put a strip of black gesso on each. So the top strip is clear gesso, the bottom strip is black gesso on each, so that we could try it on both clear and black. Let's do this because we might want to try a couple of different things. first to see how it goes on. That went on super nice, rich and creamy onto the clear gesso. Let's see how it goes on to the black. Now, even going on to black gesso or black watercolor paper, black cardstock, each brand of crayons is going to have different properties and they're going to look different. That is something when I first saw them, I thought, oh, they're all the same. They're just different brands, but they're really not, because each brand does have different properties. And that's why, like Gelatos, you can just blend all the time. But Tim Holtz, you need to blend before they dry. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more in a few minutes about why that is and what the properties are. So the Gelatos shows up. There's a lot more white in the Distress Red, so it's a lot more transparent. The Gelato shows up a lot richer on the black gesso. Let's see, the Vicki Boutin. Ooh, that shows up pretty well as well. And the Jane Davenport. They're so rich and creamy. I just want to smear them everywhere. just the feel of the rich and creamy smear. Okay, so I'm going to grab the water brush. And let's try this with water on the clear gesso and on the black gesso. So here's the clear gesso with the Distress crayons. That moves very nicely. And let's see on the black gesso. That moves very nicely, and it actually kind of changes the red a little bit. Ability to see it. Get a little angle there. Okay, the Gelatos. Okay, nice and creamy. And on the black, a little bit more difficult. Get rid of the line. There we go. But that's really rich, pretty red. Probably see that one. Okay, the Vicki Boutin. Nice and creamy. Now, when you get them, they're all pretty much really creamy at the beginning when they're brand new. And you'll notice as they age, just like everything has a shelf life, whether it's opened or not. But you'll notice with age, they start to dry out just a little bit. That doesn't mean they're any less usable. They're just not as creamy right from the beginning. And so a lot of other techniques that we're going to look at, you can use them even when they're dry. So you can see if you wanted something on the black, that the Distress may not be your first choice. The Jane Davenport is really beautiful. So is the Vicki Boutin, and the Gelatos is a very nice color on the black. Okay, another difference before I go to some very specific things there, but another difference in all these brands is that Tim Holtz and let's see, Gelatos have metallics. A lot of brands do not have metallics. Here's a gold. And put my hand right in that red. Good thing it's water-based, comes off easily. Let's do a gold Gelato. That's a pretty old Gelato. I've had that for a number of years. And you could tell it's getting a little crumbly there. But there's a gold of each. And let's grab a water brush. And try a little water on those. See the gold metallic on the black is, I like it better than the regular color because it gives that shimmer and shine. I also have to be aware that some of the difference might be how much of the product I put down. I know I smeared a lot of the gelato up top because it was kind of dry, so I pressed harder and smeared a lot. But you can see the look you can get. Okay, so for example here, you could take this and make a very nice shimmery background that you're doing something else on. Great shimmer. You could probably do this as well. There are even different colors of gold, though. This one seems to be more of a green gold, and this one's more of a yellow gold. So I can see a difference in the color. Okay, so we'll set that one aside. Let's see, before we leave the red, you can also take your water brush. Don't overfill it so it's not dripping all over your hand. I need to unscrew it and get all the water out that's stuck in the screwy part. And take the water brush straight to the crayon to get some of the pigment. There's a crumble breaking off there, which should be perfect for some of our next techniques. But you can take it straight there and then bring it to the paper. You don't have to wipe it on the paper first or rub it on the paper first. But you can go get just as much as you want. And actually, this red, I have, I do. Let's do this for a minute. There's a couple of stamped images. Here's some red roses. So if you take this red and you can watercolor directly onto stamped images, and you can make it as rich or as light as you want by, you see how it's a little darker down here, a little lighter there. I went back to get more and went straight here and let it be darker here, back to get more. And then if I want it to be lighter, the more water you have, the lighter it's going to be. The less water, the more pigment you have, the darker it's going to be. Okay, so the gelato, let's try the gelato in the same manner. Oh, it's a great rose color. I'm really liking that. If I don't add any more, if I don't bring it back here to get more, and I just keep going on, it's going to have more water and less pigment, and it's going to get lighter and lighter. So as I go to the tips, that's what I want. But if I want more rich color down here, I go back and get more color. And then after I've got the color I want there, I can just stay without getting more color, let it bring more water, and go out to the tips to carry that out. I'm by no means any professional watercolorist, just merely showing you some of the things that you can do. Dripping water everywhere. Every time I squeeze it, I know it's going to do that because it's caught in between, in where it screws on. So that's why I take it off to the side when I go to squeeze it. A little darker up there than I wanted it to be, but okay, so you get the idea there of the amount of pigment that you can choose to have it. And you might think of watercolor as something without much control. You really have pretty darn good control with these by doing this, because you can take as much pigment or as little, you know, by how much you can. I just keep rubbing this and get more and more pigment on here. Got 4, so I'll do half of this rose here. More and more pigment. And then if I've got all the pigment I want, then I can just let the water take over with the pigment that's left to go out to the rest. Not enough pigment, so. And if it's not dark enough or light enough, you can go back and go over it. You can go back with water and pick up some pigment, or you can take your wet brush and do it over your crayon again and get more pigment. So here we are with the Jane Davenport. This one reminds me of a lipstick. It's a beautiful color red as well. As the gets the really rich red is really pretty, but I'm noticing as it has less and less color and more water, it becomes more pinkish red, which is kind of pretty on roses. Okay, so it gives you an idea of what you can do just watercoloring with a brush and a cup of water, or with a water brush. Doesn't make any difference either way. Most of the time, I probably prefer just a brush and water, but sometimes a water brush is really nice. Maybe we'll do that butterfly in a bit too. So, okay, so let's see, what do we want to do next? Okay, let's do this. Next, let's do some direct comparison of. Candy, am I missing anything in chat that I need to be on top of?
They're talking about Laura got a new heat. She just plugged in her glue gun.
Oh,
Suzanne
yeah,
got a heat gun. They're Prisma pencils, watercolor sticks, no Prisma crayons. Neo,
okay,
I guess
yep.
Neo crayons.
The pencil Neo crayons, they are crayons. Yep. The pencils we will do on another day for sure. I'm trying to keep each item of media by itself or with its own kind, so that it makes sense as we do it, comparing it to other things that are similar to it. You know what I mean? Rather than comparing the pencils to the crayons to the pastels, because you might have one of each, and once you know what they do, then you can see the differences. But if you have, I've got 2 or 3 different sets of pencils, and if I look at them and go, well, which kind of pencil should I be using for this, and what does it do? And that's what I need to do, is compare all the kinds of pencils together. So that's what I'm trying to do, is give you the comparison of the like products with like. Okay, so what I want to do here is do some direct comparison of the Distress and the Gelatos. And the reason is 2 things. First, those are the 2 that most people tell me that they have. And second, they have some very different properties. And so if I am used to using one and I grab the other, or I grab any other crayon and expect it to work exactly the same, it's not going to. And then I might be frustrated or wonder what the heck. Let's go with pink for this one. Okay, but we're only going to use the Distress and the Gelato for this one. So what's this? This is picked raspberry in the Distress. One of my favorite colors. All right, so the first thing is, this is what I'm using here is just cardstock. Okay, just cardstock. So I'm going to put the Gelato down first. And I'm going to put the Distress second. So Julie already brought up that if you don't get to the Distress right away, it's going to dry out. So as I put this Distress down, I'm going to immediately come over and try to do the finger blend. Finger tools are great. And it feels creamy. It's still a little tougher because it's dry. We're on dry paper. It's not pre-treated, so there's no sealant, no coating that gives it that smooth surface to move. But even on dry cardstock, if I do it while I just put it down while it's wet, it blends. It blends very nicely. Once it dries, it doesn't blend so well. Now, if I come over to the gelatos I put down first, then I put the distress, then I blended the distress. So now I'm coming back to the gelatos. So they have had time to dry. If I had done that with the distress, this wouldn't blend because it had too long to dry. But the gelatos still blend. Okay? It doesn't matter how long you leave the gelatos, they're still going to blend. The distress, you need to blend it while it's freshly put down before it dries. That's a huge difference. That's a really huge difference. And that also is going to make a difference on how it acts or reacts when you go to use it for something. So,
Sue said, "You're doing awesome. I may not be on lives, but I take advantage of a lot of your videos." She also asked if you were on last night. She wanted to watch. We weren't on last night, were we?
Last night was Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Nope.
No, and Saturday Sharon was on as Texture
Yep.
Junkies.
Saturday night Sharon was on. This coming
Julie's
Saturday
wondering
night.
why she always has to jump through hoops. Well, you live in Australia, like Sue said, Julie. Because you're special.
Because you should move over here by us. You're special enough to live in Australia, and we aren't, so you get the hoop.
Yeah.
That's why. That's funny. Okay, I'm gonna use a pink, a yellow.
I think I found some gelatos, to tell you the truth.
Really? Awesome.
Is a Faber Castell?
Yep, a Faber Castell gelato.
Yeah, when I was seeing you use yours, I was like, I have those somewhere.
I've got those
stuck somewhere. Yep,
yeah,
I did.
the Faber
I have
Castell
some.
one. Okay, so it might look like this. Faber Castell.
Yes, I got that one right there.
Okay.
I bought them off of you. I remember when you started using, I was like, oh,
yes.
I have those.
Yeah, or it might look like this. Faber Castell gelatos.
Yeah, these don't have the word gelato on them.
They don't on the other side?
No, I don't see it.
Yeah. Some of mine are rubbed off. Some of mine are rubbed off, but but these are also gelatos. So if you have these, they're all, anybody. If you have these, they're also gelatos. So okay, cool. Okay,
Suzanne, she's listed. She's under Texture Junkies, all one word.
Yes.
On YouTube.
Texture Junkie is so special they won't.
I don't remember. I cannot remember what subject she used. It was art journal something.
Yeah, something having to do with art journals.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Okay.
I was watching it while I was doing invoices.
Oh. Let's take a different color. Let's take a yellow, and let's put a yellow down. Oh, yeah, I need distress over there. What am I doing?
Yeah, I wish the gelatos had a smaller tip.
Okay, I just put gelatos over here. Now I'm smearing it around up here, but I'm trying to just make it light. This is untreated cardstock, so it's not going to come off. If this was treated, I could pick it right up. But I just want to kind of smear it out of the way so that when I put the distress down, you can see the distress over here. Okay, so we've got gelatos over here and distress over here. And I'm using mustard seed on the distress. And then I'm just going to grab a water brush on this one. Well, it's kind of a little brush, but it'll work. When I do water, I always have this sitting at my desk. It's just a cute little rooster. If I turn it to the side, the water will spill, so I can't. I'll have to show you another time. It's just a cute little, like a little garden cup that has a rooster and sunflowers on the side. But inside is just a little, you can put any little tiny glass. And in the center is the clean water. And then after I do something with this and I need to clean it, the outside is the dirty water to clean it. So I always if I need to get water to add, I'm always going to dip it out of the center. So I'm not adding dirty water to my color because that is just going to make my color dirty. So I'm getting some clean water, and I'm going to come over here and see how the gelatos move with just water and a brush. And they're moving quite nicely. Nice and creamy. There's a couple little chunks there. Perfect. Just grab them and wet them, move them around, and they dissolve, and that's a beautiful color. Okay. And now we're going to do the same thing with the Distress. I didn't clean off. I should have cleaned off the color, but just grabbed more water. The Distress is moving very nicely as well with water. This is not watercolor paper. This is only cardstock, and it's not even a heavy cardstock. We could do the same one on watercolor paper, but just on probably a medium weight, light to medium weight cardstock. Okay, so with a water brush, both of them smudge very nicely. Okay, so now let's do another. Take the third color and remember to put the Distress on the right side, not Gelato on both. Ooh, that's way creamy. Interesting. Sometimes one feels more creamier than the other, and sometimes it's because one is older than the other, and the older one is not going to be as creamy. The newer they are, the creamier they are. The older they are, the drier they are, no matter what the brand. And as they dry out, they're going to become a little more crumbly. What am I looking for? I'm looking for some water. Okay, so I'm going to
The Messy Palette has joined us.
Oh, hi, Di. How are you? Good to see you. Boy, you sure had a cool journal in the collab. Okay, so where am I? Let's see. We're going to spray. I'm going to spray these now. Do I want? Yeah, I want to. There's a couple other techniques with the spray, and we'll do those on a different. Okay, going to spray these. I think maybe I need to do that on watercolor paper. See what happens. Let's get this water up. They both ran a little bit, but not badly. Not badly on cardstock. I honestly expected that to be way worse on the cardstock. So that makes me think that I want to try it on watercolor paper. Okay, I'm going to set this over here to dry. And I'm going to grab, I think I had, well, let's grab that red again. Or the pink. We haven't used the pink for a whole lot, and I really like that pink. Okay, Distress on the right. And Gelato on the left. Okay, and let's spray them. Okay, it's interesting. As I saturate it, I'm saturating the Distress a little more to see. Okay, as I saturate that with water, the Gelato moves. You can see how all that color has moved. It's kind of beaded and moved, and a little bit of color has come down here, but the Distress has not moved. So I'm going to grab this one, what might be, color. I'm going to need a third brush that's got no color of competing, no color in it at all. Let's see, that should, that's got a gold in it. Somebody didn't wash that brush. All right, here we go.
Who could that be? Lucy?
I have no idea. Who's been at my desk? Okay, so when I sprayed the gelato moved, but the distress doesn't move until you move it. Okay, remember that. That's a huge difference. Now, why is that a huge difference and why does it make any difference? Because typically when we're using mediums and media, we're doing something mixed media, and everything we do mixed media has layers. So we're putting one thing down, we're layering something else on top of it and something else on top of it. And I know that this is specifically a trait that Tim Holtz wanted the distress to have, that it doesn't move until you move it. So if you used other media or mediums on top of it, it stayed where it was. So the gelato moved and it did not stay the rich pigment color that it was. The distress did not move until I came in with, it was wet, but I came in with the brush and moved it, and then it moved. Okay, so that's really important to remember. Let's do the same thing on a treated. Let's see. Okay, this cardstock. This is regular cardstock, not watercolor paper, but it is treated. I put just a thin coat of a clear collage medium down here. Let's see. What do I want to do on that one? I want to put something through a stencil. I want to put the crayon through a stencil. That's what I want to do. Over this, it's just regular cardstock. You can see it's a little bit wonky because it's not super heavy, and it just laid on some water here, and it's got this layer of medium on it, so it's, buckled a little bit. So it's just the Distress collage medium. Any collage medium, gesso, they'll all work the same. So first I'm going to, on the left side, put some gelato down. On the right side, I'm going to put some Distress crayon down. Okay, and you can see that other than the big holes, more of the crayon went on the stencil than in the holes. None of the little holes have any in it at all. So I'm going to take my finger and do the smudge test, the smudge technique. Now remember, this is a treated piece of paper with the collage medium. And because it has the collage medium, this is smudging quite well, quite easily. Moving along. That's, yeah. So even though when I ran this over here, it didn't go into all the little holes, I can go back with my finger and it's smudging in all the little holes beautifully because of the coated paper. Let me try that was the gelato. So let me try the Distress. I got to clean that finger because that's the finger that needs to do this. Okay, let's try the Distress. Okay, it also is moving right off of the stencil, smudging onto the paper in all the little holes very nicely. Wow, that sure is pretty. I'm not even typically a yellow person, but I'm really liking the way that looks. Makes me think of sunflower. Okay. So much on my finger. Oops, I must have had some other color on that stencil because I pulled some of it off with it. You can see just a hint of another color there. Okay, so I know that the camera is not going to like the shine or sheen of that collage medium underneath it, but hopefully this will show there. So the Gelato and the Distress, and this is a treated piece of just regular cardstock. Okay, so now I'm going to spritz. Where's my spritzer? No. Now I know what I want to do. Now I want to take, okay, so this is one of what I just said was one of the things that Tim really wanted was color that would stay where it was. So if you were layering, doing mixed media, you could keep layering with all his different, we've got distress spray stains, we've got distress ink, we've got the oxides, we've got all these things. And he wanted to be able to continue to layer without destroying this. So I'm going to take, this is yellow, so I'm going to take a blue distress spray stain. This one is Prize Ribbon. And I'm going to spray, I don't think I've even ever sprayed this one before. Yay, get to try a new color. I'm going to spray this on it. I'm going to saturate it. I should have a paper underneath it to catch it all, huh? Because that would be nice drippings. And let's see what happens with it. What?
They're talking about wombat square poop.
Wombat?
Yeah, they have square poop. And
They-
then Toby comes in and says, "Why are we talking about poop?" Then Sue said, "Nice texture," but I think she was talking about yours.
But that
And then
kind of fit right in with
Diane
your-
goes, "Geez, ladies, I have used some weird stuff for texture, but never poop."
It never was. Yeah. Me either. And I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I notice here is that the distress, where the yellow is, it kind of is repelling the distress spray stain, and the Gelato is not. So the stain, the spray stain is going right over the yellow and sticking to that and changing it to green. If I come in here, let's see, I think that one was blue. If I come in here with a wet brush, see what happens. Okay, so the Gelato, my dots are completely gone. They mixed with the blue and completely turned to green. So if I come in with the same one over the top of the Distress, it's moving the blue, but my yellow dots are staying the same. So I could probably, that's the case, I could whoop, now I'm picking it all up because I forgot it was a treated paper.
Water.
Yep,
Yeah.
it was a treated paper with the collage medium on the bottom, and so the collage medium allowed me to pick it up. So then the crayon started picking up. But you see how the dots are still in place, and you can see, well, get in front of the camera. I'm not used to being there. Some of these dots are completely, I didn't go over the top of them. It completely repelled it all on its own, but they're all in place, and they didn't just run with it. This is going to be a pretty paper towel, isn't it? Prize ribbon. We do something with that for sure. I love that color. That is so pretty. So pretty. Okay, so that's a good test. Let's, oh, look at all that. I don't want to waste that. Hang on a second here.
You know, stop it up with a tag.
With a what?
With a tag.
Yeah, I should have just put this paper underneath it instead of the paper towel.
Yeah.
I'm going to split the paper towel and decoupage it down. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, set that one on that one. And let's see here. Okay, so if I have I've got, here's just a cardstock tag. I've got 2 cardstock tags. I'm going to use this one side by side. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take some untreated cardstock. Here we go. Some untreated cardstock. And I'm going to take a stencil. I'll use this stencil. And I'm going to put down some gelato and some distress through the stencil. Most of it goes on the stencil, but I can get it in there with the smudge technique, or I could use a baby wipe. For this, I would probably get a baby wipe that's been sitting out a bit and is not really, really wet, because I don't want it to just pick it up. I want it to move it off the stencil and onto the paper, like that. Okay. Wipe a little bit of that off, so I'm not just mixing. I don't want to just mix the two. Oh, darn. Hang on a minute. I got to pick up this mess I made right here. That looks really cool. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got this texture on my mat. So I'm going to bring my paper over here and see if I can't pick that up. That looks really cool. Unintentional messes are awesome. There we go. Instead of using a wipe to get that, I will just use my paper. Perfect. Okay, then I'll bring it over here and we'll get the distress crayon. And we'll do the same thing. Okay. And let's get it into the stencil holes. I think I moved the stencil. Hopefully that didn't really affect where the holes were. It did a little bit. We can see some of the other one on there, but okay. So I'm going to quickly hit this with my blow dryer just to dry it. I do not want this to be wet at all. It's still wet. So I want to hit this with my heat gun, not my embossing tool, because the embossing tool is much more directed and it's much more hot. So much hotter, much more hot, much hotter. So much more directed heat. And we don't want to melt the crayons because that's not going to dry it. That's just going to make it all wet again. So I want to dry it up. If I leave it sitting on the mat, which I did at the beginning, then the heat cannot go through to the back. Then I have to wait until the heat makes the whole glass heat up and get warm to heat it and dry it from the back. So I realized what I was doing, wasn't thinking very clearly there, so I picked it up. As soon as you pick it up, the heat can go through to the back and it will dry much quicker. So let me just, I'm going to put it on low. We'll make sure that is dry and we'll check it with the palm test. Feels just a little sticky. Yep, just a little sticky. There's still some there, so let's put it up on high. Then my paper's everywhere. You can see that I got the distress much thicker anyway, so this will be interesting to see how it reacts, because that's kind of a distorted comparison if they're not the same thickness. That's still slightly sticky because I got it so thick. For this test I'm going to do, it's really critical that they are completely dry. Oh, that's my eyes. It won't keep the melting thing going if you do it to the point of drying them. If you get too close or the heat is too hot, then it will just remelt them. Julie, that is true. And that's why I said the difference between an embossing gun, which is directed heat, or a heat gun, which is more diffused air. Does that make sense? If we're embossing, we want to use the embossing gun, the heat gun, that has a smaller opening and is a lot hotter, and everything comes out very directed, because you want that heat right there to emboss. If we're drying, we want to use just the general heat gun, which is, for me, is a blow dryer, because it has a much bigger opening. It's meant to send hot air everywhere. It diffuses it, and it's not so focused and concentrated. And so it's basically just like standing it in the wind. Also, not getting too close to it so you don't have just the heat right on it. So I stayed back a ways from that and just wanted the wind to be blowing. The reason this one's taken a while is because it's too thick. I did get that just a little bit thick when I put it down. I'm going to put this on it and see if any of it comes up. See, there is still a little that comes up there because it was so thick. So maybe I can get some of that up. When I put it down, I wasn't thinking about what we were going to do with it and that it needed to be completely dry. But we can set it aside and come back to it in just a minute, because it is a really cool test that I want to do, but it is important that that is completely dry. So let's do that. We're going to set that aside, and we're going to use with that one, I picked raspberry. So I'm going to set that over there, and then I won't forget that we want to do that. Okay, so there's the cap to that. And where's the cap to that? Boy, I lose the caps to these all the time. I should just keep them in my hand or something, but that doesn't work. All right, let's do
Christina came in.
Hey, which Christina? KK?
KK.
Awesome. Hey, KK.
Yeah, I was talking. I was like, oh, I muted. Duh.
You're over there talking to me? Okay, we're going to need some water. We're going to put these up here out of the way. We got water brushes. We got regular brushes and a couple of stamps right here. Okay, so another series of techniques that we'll do. And for this series, we just used the Gelato and the Distress. So for this series of techniques, let's use the Vicki Boutin crayon. And so for the first one, I have a stencil. I think it's called Peacock Feathers or something, because it's kind of sorta like peacock feathers on there. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to use that, and we're going to use a dry art crayon. Let me move these out of the way and make sure, where's my paper towel? Let me grab a new paper towel. I want to make sure that my area is dry. I've got blue spray on here, so let me get that up. Okay, so there's a lot of techniques that you can use dry or wet, or you start with dry and you move to wet in what you want it to do. So this is using a dry art crayon technique, and let's see, let's use a purple. We haven't used purple at all. So for this one, you can see my mat here. The white part of the mat and the black part of the mat is where I have the stencil. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to scribble it directly on my mat. It's just a glass mat. So any glass mat, whoop, sorry, I just realized that's shaking the table, which is shaking the camera. Any glass mat will work for this. If you do not have a glass mat, an acrylic block will work for this. Also, what I'll use sometimes if my glass mat isn't out is just a big sheet of acetate, like one that you pull off of some packaging, or you know those report protectors that we had in school. They're clear, and you stick your report in it, and then slide the thing over the binding. The little slidey thing becomes the binding. Those are perfect. Just keep one of those, at your desk, and you can set that down, and they are perfect to use. I've got some big sheets of, not big, they're no bigger than 8.5 by 11 from packaging sitting here that I grab very frequently. Okay, so I put a dry art crayon down. That is purple. I didn't get nearly enough because I want you to be able to see it on this stencil. All right, and then we're going to use a brush. A lot of you know this as a stippling brush because it is used for stippling on stencils. We're going to use it on the stencil today, but we're not really going to stipple with it. And what you want to keep in mind when you're using these brushes, we had some of these Saturday at the sale, if you don't have any stippling brushes, but what you want to keep in mind is that you don't want to shove your color, your pigment, whatever it is you're working with. You don't want to shove that pigment clear up into the bristles. It really just stays on the end, like the last, you might see like 1/16 of an inch turns color, and that's kind of what you see. So we're going to come over here, and we're just very gently, it'll take a minute because we're just very gently picking up this color, and I can tell that it's moving the desk again. I apologize if that's making anybody sick. Okay, so I've picked up the pigment, the dry art crayon, into my brush, and then I'm going, so this is loading the brush, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to lightly rub it around the stencil. Now you don't want to be pushing so hard that your bristles are splaying out. You really don't want that. Destroys your bristles. It makes them so they don't come back to this nice, circle. And that's how you get, the things that you want, the techniques that you want with this type of brush, is by having them in that nice circle up front. So I can go back and pick up, look, literally picked up every little bit of color that was on there. Come back over to my stencil, and I'm just gently going around in circles. I could have taped it down, but I didn't, so I'm just taking time to move my hand to keep it all in one place, so at least I can get a decent pattern out of that. Just gently move it in circles, and all the pigment will come off. You just keep gently moving, it'll come off. Okay, and just move it around the stencil. That is dry crayon. It looks just like you used a distress ink or a distress oxide, all with a dry crayon. Okay, so now let's say that we take the same crayon and we scribble on the mat. We're not scribbling on our paper, notice. We're putting it down and then we're picking it up to use it as we want it. Okay, and then let's take a paintbrush. Get the blue off of it. We'll get some clean water. We'll go over here and mix up some water with it. And we're just going to blend this up. That dry crayon now becomes watercolor. What is really cool is if you're traveling, you can take a pack of crayons with you and have so many techniques that you don't have to take watercolors, you don't have to take crayons and inks and this and that. You know, with one pack of crayons, you can do a whole lot of things. Okay, I didn't put a lot down there, but there's enough. And so by getting water on it there, now you can do, whoops, the kissing technique where you just bring your paper over and gently kiss it and pick it up to get some watercolor backgrounds. So if I wanted multiple colors or I wanted a whole bunch, if I want to completely cover it, like for the background of a card, then I'd want to scribble out more and then add water. And so the whole thing has water and it can move it around in all different, you know, if you just mix up the water, you don't really have to choose how to move it around. It does it beautifully on its own. And then I'd come back here and put this in a couple of times and actually cover the whole card and have a very nice watercolor background by just picking up the wet crayon, the kissing technique. Okay, so I can do the same thing with crayon and some water, turning it into watercolor. Let's see, I think I do little pieces of paper here. Turn it into watercolor. Maybe kind of a big brush because I ended up with a lot of it on the brush. And now I can grab a stamp and I can bring this stamp in and stamp a watercolor image. There's a flower. And drop it and just keep stamping. Get ghost stamps. I was going to put it to the side and stamp another one so you can see kind of what the ghost stamp looks like. I didn't mean to drop it right in the middle. But you can get a nice watercolor flower stamped of that. Or let's see if there's enough still on there to get this heart. Heart's a little bit bigger. Let's see if there's enough. Maybe. Nice watercolor heart. So you can use them as watercolor paints, either with your brush or stamping. Have you ever thought about stamping with watercolors? So you get the watercolor image, even if you don't have to paint it. Just having the outline be watercolor image makes it softer than if you'd stamped it with the StazOn or an archival or even a distress ink. It's much softer stamping it in watercolor. So, you know, it all depends on the look that you want from it. Now, we can also take that same crayon and dip the crayon straight in water. And then we can rub it over. I'm going to dry the stamp so we can see it actually from scratch, like there's nothing already on there. So dip the crayon in water. And then it's kind of a small stamp, but it should still work. I just want you to be able to see it. Rub the crayon over the stamp because the crayon's wet, right? So I'm just putting the watercolor directly onto. Grab another piece of paper here. Got some little ones. And then stamp my watercolor flower. And you don't have to press down super hard. I just give it a minute for the watercolor to transfer from the stamp to the paper. Let's see if we can get a second one, maybe a ghost one, a very light ghost one. But you could just keep rubbing over it. In fact, we could add a little bit of this pink. Let's add a little of this pink right in the middle. The purple on the outside, the pink in the middle. That's very runny. That's very pretty. The purple out there. And let's see how that does. Because who says you have to stick with just one color crayon? Oh, got a nice inside, but not too much, way too much water on the inside. Look at that. Okay, so second imprint might work better. I'm not even going to put any more on the center because I can still see it puddling. Where the pink is, I can still see it puddling. It's a technique that I know works. When I was taught it, I used it several times and loved it. I haven't used it in a very long time. Okay, purple is too dry. If it's not coming off, that just means it's dry. So it's sticking to the stamp because it's too dry. So I need to get the purple wetter. I'll put a little more pink on there and see if we still have a giant puddle on the pink. But the whole thing about watercolor images is that they aren't the perfect lines as, you know, real flowers. So there we go, a watercolor rose with the pink inside and the purple outside. So you could add as many colors as you want, but you can dip these directly into water and use them as watercolor sticks. They don't have to be only down on your mat or used dry. Let's put some more of this down here. So say I'm doing this and, oh, look at that. I am just too heavy-handed. Oh, it's a good thing it still works even if it's broken. Just have to get the paper off there. But I am, and I know I am, but they still work great. Almost all of mine are broken. I'm going to put some down here. I want a bunch. And can you see down? I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see there's some little chunks here. The little chunks are okay. In fact, they're good. You take the little chunks and I'm looking to see if I have a clean palette knife at all. This one's pretty clean. Okay, I'm going to take some of this iridescent glaze. Oh, I grabbed the not open one. It's okay. It's getting open today. I'm going to put some of this iridescent glaze down with it. Which will turn this purple crayon into iridescence. So all those chunks are perfectly fine. I can smash them up and use them right in the iridescent glaze. Okay, so now I have a purple or lavender, because I didn't put down a ton of pigment, just enough to do the thing. Let's take this heart and try this heart. Where's another piece of paper here? I can use this as a stamp still. Several things that I can do with that. So I'm going to use that as a stamp right onto the paper. Oops. I knew I moved it. But ooh, that's pretty. I just turned that iridescent glaze into a lavender iridescent glaze. Very, very pretty. Let's see if we have any left to get a ghost print. Don't know if we do. Ooh, a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to set that to the side. I'm going to bring this back here. Got a nice big stencil so I could get it back on the exact same spot. And I'm going to grab this iridescent glaze with the palette knife. Doesn't have to be used with a stamp.
Julie said try black paper.
Oh, the iridescent glaze would be beautiful on the black paper. I'm going to bring it over here and just run it through this stencil with the palette knife quick, just to use that leftover to show you. Trying to keep it where I hadn't already put the color, but not working 100% because there wasn't that much space. So even if you did just the color and you had then a little bit of the glaze. Now this is iridescent glaze, which gives it that cool shine, but you could do this with a medium, with a matte medium, with a high shine medium, a glossy medium, you know, a white or a clear gesso. You could do it with any. Honestly, it'll add to any. So that's kind of cool. All right, let me close this up before I... And you know, now, sorry about that scrape right there. I didn't have to use the palette knife to put it on there. Could also come over here with the brush and pick it up with the brush. Let's do
we
that.
only have 15 minutes left.
Okay. Come over here with the brush. We'll put our stencil back in place and gently go around just like we did before. Now, if I do it with the brush, I'm going to get it much thinner. If I do it with the palette knife, it's going to be much thicker. So your choice, my choice of how I'm going to do it there would be whether I want it to be raised 3D or whether I want it to be flat like the first part is. Didn't line that up perfectly, but just want it to have that iridescence. Because if I just want it to have the iridescence but be flat, then I'm going to do it with my brush. If I want it to be raised 3D, then I'm going to do it with my palette knife. So here we go. So with the palette knife, it's raised 3D. With the brush, it's flat, just like this is, but it has that iridescent shine. So that would be your deciding factor on that. Okay, so before we finish up, I want to come back to this one and hope it's dry. Yeah, I really put that on way too thick. Okay, I think it's dry enough. I hope it's dry enough. All right, let me clean my fingers just a bit here. All right, so what I want to do is what I don't want to do is transfer all these other colors to it. I'm going to grab a clean baby white, because now I'm getting all the other colors on me from the baby white. Ooh, sorry, Julie, about that squeak. Oh, cloudy and dark today. Well, it's snowing here. At least it was when we started. So, and 70 where Candy is.
73.
73. Shoot. I think 75 for Sandy. Yeah, but we always say if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes because it can change in 5 minutes. It's so funny. We got up this morning and Doug looked at the weather and he said, "Oh, it's snowing." And I looked outside and said, "Yeah, it's snowing." And he says, "But the local weather app says it's gonna snow for 20 more minutes and then it's gonna stop and then it's gonna snow again in 30 minutes." And I just laughed and I said, you're telling me it's going to stop for 10 minutes and then start up again? And so we watched. Sure enough, it stopped for 10 minutes and started snowing again. It was so funny. Like, really? Oh, okay. Now my hands are all wet. Okay, so was this pre-treated? Was this pre-treated cardstock? I wanted pre-treated. I don't think I used a pre-treated. I wanted a pre-treated. I'm not sure this is going to work then, because I should have grabbed a pre-treated. No, okay, let's try it anyway. Okay, so this is untreated cardstock. That'll work. It'll work. And I put the blue, let's write this down, Gelato over here, and the Distress crayon over here. Okay, through the stencil. Now, it's a little bit off balance test because the Distress one was way thicker, as you can see. But I've given it a little extra time to dry because it does need to be fully dry. And I'm grabbing the Picked Raspberry Distress ink. Gonna load up this blending tool with Picked Raspberry Distress ink. Okay, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add Picked Raspberry.
Yep, 10 minutes.
Maybe I should have grabbed a blending brush because I'm not doing a very good job of blending. You see all the little circular motions. Okay, but I want to get lots of Picked Raspberry in here. Because if it does what I think it's going to do, I want it to be loaded. Okay. Okay, so there's the Distress. Now I'm going to come over to the Gelato and I'm going to do the same thing. Let me load it up even more. Lots of Picked Raspberry. Oh. Okay. All right, well, yeah, it's done exactly what I thought it would. So this is something that Tim has always said, and this was the test that would either prove it true or not true. Okay, remember when I said that he has said that he wanted the Distress to be something that could be used in mixed media, the Distress crayons, which means that you can layer on it and it's not going to change it, it's not going to move until you want it to. So, because every time you add a layer, if it's ruining what's underneath it by changing it, it kind of defeats the purpose. So we put that layer down, and as long as we dried it or allowed it to dry on its own, then put the next layer over of the Picked Raspberry ink, even blending it. You can see that I blended it in between all over the place, and I went back and got a lot in there to make sure, and it still left that the stencil image and the blue Distress crayon in place. When I did the same thing with the Gelato, I do have the stencil image back there, but it completely smeared all of the crayon and turned it all to purple. So I no longer really have the blue and the Picked Raspberry. I now have blue and pink together, and that's purple. Hi, honey.
Candy Feinberg has come in.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, Candy.
Can I just start doing something for the chili?
Yeah. Brown the meat. Perfect.
In
that pot. Yeah, the blue
pot.
one. Yeah. So if I know that I'm going to use this on some mixed media, and I know I'm going to want to add layers, then I'm going to want to use a distress crayon, and I just want to make sure I let it dry before I move on, or I heat dry it before I move on, if I want it to stay as is and build upon it. Otherwise, if I were to use a gelato, we'd have to try the other brands too to see what they do. But if I use a gelato, I know I might still have an image of that, but the ink, the crayon is not going to stay where I put it. It's going to blend. So that's a huge difference. So we found several huge differences today between them. What do we have? 5 minutes? About 5 minutes? Okay. So let's just grab, I took a couple of just plain cardstock tags and I ran some medium through them, or through a stencil onto them, just in case we had time to play with that and see what those would do. It's not very heavy cardstock. It's a real lightweight cardstock, so I'm going to try to flatten it out there a bit. Okay, so let's try a test on each of them. Let's do the pink, yellow, blue. I kind of like that combination. The pink, yellow, blue. Where's the gelato pink, yellow, blue? Okay, let's try this. Okay, so I'm going to take the blue distress crayon and put some here, and then remember to put the lid back on it. I'm going to take the yellow distress crayon. I think it's probably the last test we'll have time for. Are there any questions that you have? Whoops, I went right over the blue. Any questions that you have, or anything that you want to see real quick that I could test on these for you before we end? And then we'll put the pink on the last section.
Pumpkin. I just put both of those squares of meat in there. I was
okay. Oh, that's okay. We do both of those and then do 2 turkeys.
Okay.
And then we can take half of it out for the soup and half of it out for the other thing. Oh, honey?
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing, we don't want it browned. I'm sorry. So if you can take one of those squares out.
Too bad I already chopped it all up.
Already chopped it all up?
Yeah.
Okay, then brown all 4. That's all right. We'll do something different. Brown all 4. Okay, so I'm going to do those on here, and I'm going to come over to the other tag, and I'm going to do we just change the menu. That's all. I'm going to do the same thing, but with the gelatos. At least he wanted to help and get it going. That was kind of nice. And the yellow in the center. Oh, I ran over the blue again. Makes it turn green. Didn't mean to run over the blue. Okay, and the pink. All right. Okay, so there are several things that you can do here. You could take a baby wipe, and you could come in with the baby wipe and rub like this and get that kind of effect all over the whole tag. And if I was going to do that, I'd probably put medium all over the whole tag. I only put it kind of here and there. We'll do the same on the gelatos. Tried to get close colors blue, but they're not exactly the same color blue, but the same kind of effect there. Once that dries, you could come back over this with a baby wipe and wipe off your raised portions to remove that crayon so that they are lighter than the background behind it. Okay. You could also come in with your finger, either dry like this, or get your finger just a little bit wet and bring your finger in like that. Some people like using their finger tool. Some people don't, and that's okay. For me, it depends how bad the neuropathy is in my fingers. Okay. If I do that, then I keep rubbing, I can get that a lot into the background. And it makes the raised areas lighter, which looks really cool, especially on the round, when you do a round look there. I can also bring a brush in. This brush might have been purple last, so let's make sure it's not. Okay. You can bring a water brush in or a brush in water and move that around. Now remember, the Distress, the Tim Holtz Distress, is not going to move until you move it. So you can get it wet, but like, well, let's try. Oh, I'll show you one more thing with this same one. Okay. And we'll take some water over to the Gelato and do the same. Such a pretty color on that blue Gelato. Okay. I want to try this. And again, why didn't I just put a piece of paper underneath it to catch all the coolness?
Twice today.
What?
That's twice today you've done that.
I know. Let it drip onto the mat. At least I can pick it up from the mat, but it just drips onto the mat.
Margie said her finger tool doesn't work.
I get that. Some days mine doesn't either. Okay, so this is the Gelato.
Braille paper. Use braille paper.
There you go. This is the Gelato. Where I had already blended it down in, it's already mixed in and stays nicely with the paper. Where I hadn't blended it at all was the yellow and the pink. And as I sprayed it, the water reactivated the crayon and makes it move. And it's basically just moved right off the page. So let's see what happens with the Tim Holtz Distress. So this is where I've blended. I haven't touched the yellow or pink, just like the Gelato. Spray it. I'm going to give it a minute like I did the other one, and I'm going to spray it some more. Spray it as much as I possibly can. Okay. It's still there. So he says it doesn't move until you move it. I drenched it. I really, really drenched it. But it's still there. Oh, here's some cool dirty water for scraps, Candy. I drenched it, and that yellow and the pink is still there because I hadn't moved it yet. Now, if I come in with water, now look how it's moving. I can make it move. But it doesn't move until you move it. And that's his claim as to one huge difference between the Distress crayons and other crayons is that even though it is water activated, it does not move until you move it. It stays put, where other crayons move when the water hits them. And there's a couple things we just did there to try to prove or disprove that. And it proved. So here's the yellow. Now the yellow's moving because I'm moving it. I'm going to have to tear this up, glue it onto other things, other tags, because I have completely destroyed the paper with the water. I really saturated these. And I did that on purpose. I wanted to see, even with a ton of water, would it move? Or would it stay there until I'm moving some of the Distress over here? There's a little bit of yellow still here. The pink is the one that went really off. But once I had blended it in, it stayed a lot better on both of them. It stayed a lot better. Well, I can't say that on this one because that stayed in place just fine. But on the Gelato, once I had blended it in, it stayed quite well. So now I'm turning that green. I'll bring these together and bring green right in the middle of them. And what do pink and yellow make? Bring those two together. Pink and yellow make brown, orange, rust. What did you say?
A mess?
A mess, yeah. Mud. Actually an orange. Okay. So we just took 3 colors and made 5. So, not much left there to work with, though. So, okay. Were there any last questions or anything you want me to try real quick before we end? Most of these.
Crafting with Miss Kristen came in.
Oh, hi, Kristen. How are you? Good to see you. Most of these I do not have in the store for sale, so just in case you're wondering. But the Vicky Bouton, I think it was the warm set. There's a warm set, there's a cool set, and there's a neutral set, which I don't have. But there was only one cool set and it sold. There was a bunch of warm sets. Some of them sold, but I think there's still a couple. If you want to try the Vicky Bouton crayons, I haven't sent invoices out yet. There are still a few of those, but I don't have any of the others, unfortunately. But there are some brand new distress colors out that Tim Holtz just brought out. And I like the metallics of the distress. Those are pretty darn cool. If you don't have water brushes, I do have water brushes. We didn't get to those on Saturday at all, but at the sale. So, wow, we covered a lot. We did. Hi, Donna. Hello, welcome. Sorry that you guys missed a whole bit. We did a whole lot of comparisons between Gelatos and Distress and Vicky Bouton crayons and Jane Davenport crayons. So if you're just coming in now, hopefully you'll have a chance to go back and watch it on replay. But we did a lot of comparisons on what the different ones do, what they will do, what they won't do, how they react to different things. The Distress crayons, Gelatos, Vicky Bouton, and Jane Davenport crayons. And so we can do the pastels, the soft and the oil pastels. What I'm wondering is, do you want to do those next week right away? Or do we want to do something else and come back to those? You know, they're kind of crayon-like, kind of not. Do you like doing all those things that are kind of sort of similar, you know, back to back? Or do you prefer to space them out? What is more interesting to you guys? Hey, thanks, Margie. I
Yeah,
appreciate
don't
the
forget thumbs up,
reminder.
lady.
Thumbs
And
up.
come back and use the hashtag 1000 subs.
Yes. Thank you.
Leave a comment.
Where's that? Hey, yep, come back, leave a comment, and put 1,000 subs, hashtag 1,000 subs, and you can do that on every single video that we have on the channel, and that'll get you in the drawing for the flat rate box full of crafting goodness as soon as we hit 1,000. So, hey, any quick feedback on whether you'd like to do those right away next week or do something else and leave a little time in between? No feedback on that? All right. Then I will ask admin and see what they think, and we'll go from there. Yeah, do go back and watch. If you guys, if some of you who just came in, if you aren't in Happy Paper People Facebook group, join us there. And anything that you do from today's live that you post, hashtag Monday Jumpstart Crayons to get entered into drawings. We love posting in the group and seeing what you come up with. Inspires everyone. So thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks, Candy, for hanging out with me today and watching chat. Do appreciate it. We will see you all Thursday for the mass make. So watch for that event to be posted a little later today. Okay?
All right, ladies. See you
Have a
next
good
time.
day and stay curious.